think, more from what I have read than what I actually knew from observation, is that Uncle Bob felt like he was more of a protector to Aunt Helen because she was so much younger. But even though he loved country life and loved his family, and was seemingly very devoted to returning to be with his mother and visit his mother and sisters, his life became different. I don't know any more than Claudette what actually happened. It's conjecture and perhaps from things that we've pieced together and remember. But Grandma Stickle was ill and cared for in Grandma Ella's home. Whether that made a difference in terms of caregiving.
Again, for the sake of the tape, Grandma Stickle is
Great-grandma,
okay.
Our great-grandmother,
Right.
Robert and Ella and Helen's mother.
Gotcha.
And when she was ill, I understand that she was in my grandmother Ella's home being cared for. Aunt Helen did not live very far away, but if there was something that happened, I think it happened after her death, that perhaps, as we know, there's one earring, perhaps in dividing her belongings, or how quickly something might have been said that was very hurtful forever in terms of her caregiving. I don't know. Uncle Bob never came to stay at Grandma Ella's home. He always came to stay at Aunt Helen's, but as we've learned from photographs and history, that was his home. So that was a natural place for him to feel comfortable and come home.
Grandma Stickle had breast cancer, did she not? I remember Grandma saying that.
I believe so. And you asked about Grandma Ella's polio. Perhaps it was taxing on her to care for an adult, to try and move an adult. And I've been sitting here trying to think, okay, how did she
went.
It was right.
It was
to hang clothes, she would support her right hand.
Right.
So I think it was her right foot that turned out in her right hand. And she was right-handed. So we say that no, she didn't have limitations, but she adapted. She adapted.
Yeah.
And
But you know,
I think she had the polio when Mom was younger, so probably
So she
early
was
30s.
young.
Karen, what's your memory of going down to Hickory Hill?
It was probably the most expansive piece of property we had ever set foot on outside of a state park.
Yeah.
And I have the photo with me today of my dad and us standing in front of this huge tree with the actual home in back. Long driveway, if I remember correctly. And I would say that we were there maybe 2 or 3 days. Grandma, Grandpa, Mom, Dad, and Claudette and me and I were there. I remember Uncle Bob as having a great sense of humor. He would always have some tales to tell when he came to visit Grandma. It was a visit in the house. I don't remember walking outside with him, but always Grandma welcoming her brother and Aunt Irene into the home for coffee or tea, something light. I don't ever remember sharing a meal at Grandma's home with them, but that they always visited whenever they came to Aunt Helen's. I remember the Supreme Court, and most of what I remember is that it was dark. Dark wood, sitting in the chair.
And his picture was over the chair, right?
And shaking Felix Frankfurter's hand.
That's good, that's good.
Little guy.
Yeah.
He and I probably were eye to eye at that point. I'm guessing I was 10 and Claudette 5. I think the visit was just because he kept encouraging Grandma to visit.
What about your memories, recollections of the funeral?
Again, a lot of darkness, and as Claudette said, there was black all around it. It was a day for us to be there and hopefully remember. But we met Mary and Tom and Bobby. That was my first meeting of Tom and Bobby when we were at Hickory Hill.
Okay.
I remember little red-headed boys running around, and that I was the first recipient of the Robert H. Jackson Memorial History Award, and I would have that someplace.
You did down at Frewsburg?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if it's an annual award or if that ceased with Aunt Irene's passing, if there's an endowed amount of money that a small amount is awarded to a graduating senior that
Did you get
is
that?
outstanding in history. I can remember going to Aunt Helen's home and having a meal.
I was going to ask you that. Was there Thanksgiving dinner together, Christmas?
I can remember going down her back steps because the back of the house was
High.
not ground level. You had to go down steps to get to the back of the house. I can remember sitting on her front porch with her on a swing, I believe. And Uncle Percy was a jolly guy too. He
Never
was,
asked. I'm glad you brought that up. I was just going to ask
he was a humorous guy, like Harold. Harold was a humorous fellow.
What did Percy do?
I think he was in the insurance business. Which one? I don't remember. Something Mutual, maybe Jamestown Mutual. Was there a Jamestown
It
Mutual?
definitely was.
But a businessman. I remember seeing him in white shirt and tie.
Right.
Did Helen ever work?
I don't recall that she ever did.
We have never, the three of us, sit down to talk about Robert Jackson and the family, and so this was very informative for me. This was great for me.